Hello, I'm up in my studio, my little makeshift studio, which I sometimes do and did for a long time, and I'm hoping to bring it back. A sort of light-hearted, fun show called the Vobes Show, which is on a different channel. But I wanted to use the studio rather than downstairs where I normally do my little monologues, which you've been very kind to watch, because somebody sent me an email and said, please, would you make this known to your viewers? And it's very difficult when people send you stuff and you think, oh, I don't know how true this is. Will I be passing on things that are not true, potentially difficult, and will it bring down the powers that be to shut the channel down? So I'm always slightly dubious and wary. And since I've been doing these little commentaries and the channel has grown, of course, more and more people have been in touch and have reached out. But the main thing is that it's interesting how people have wanted to express their anger with the way that the government is behaving to ordinary people and the hypocrisies that are going on in this world. We also are in a crisis, a cost of living crisis, and we've got cold temperatures. And somebody who I'll just call A for the sake of anonymity got in touch and said, please make this service available because it may help. So I'm going to read their email. The service they're talking about, oh, I've just lost the screen there, is called the Priority Services Register, which is abbreviated to PSR, the Priority Services Register. This might benefit some of my viewers, or you may know people. And I'm not saying all of this is true or beneficial or anything like that. It's for you really to work it out. I'm just passing on this particular bit of information, which I think could be useful. I'm not really in the bracket that it talks about, although I am in a very cold house, unless I don't have central heating and things like that. But if you're cold and you need help, this might be of use. So let me immediately... Now, the reason I'm up in the studio is so that I can press this button here and show you part of the email. And it says this: if you're sick, vulnerable or elderly, then you can sign up to this, the Priority Services Register, and it will legally protect customers of energy suppliers from being cut off and not paying their bill, and also stop them from being placed on a prepayment meter setting. This can be done with the click of a button for smart meters. Maybe they could build an EMF, I'm not quite sure what that is, shielded box around it. I suppose that's just what stopped the people reading it. I don't know. But anyway, if registered on the Priority Services Register, then they cannot install a prepayment meter. Now, this could be quite useful because if you're on a prepayment meter, you've got to have the cash to feed the meter. The valid reasons for being placed on the Priorities Service Register is if you are sick, vulnerable, or elderly, not necessarily disabled either. Anyone that has respiratory issues, including asthma or similar, high blood pressure, and the emailer says we probably have about 10 million plus already in the UK with these two alone, and many other diseases. Anything related to cold weather being a threat to life, hence old age, or young children being a risk factor. So that's a very important point. Cold weather causes high blood pressure, and that can cause death, heart attacks, blood clotting, also in cold weather. Anything below 20 degrees can cause blood clotting in poorly insulated homes for the elderly. It's recommended to heat homes to 21 degrees for young and elderly, especially in older builds with poor installation, but this also includes many new builds that which doesn't meet the minimum standards either. Cold weather definitely kills, but many people already have health conditions that contribute to this and are exacerbated through the colder weather and increasing the risk of death many times more with the cold weather. On the other hand, hot weather barely ever kills people. The stats show this. Far fewer suffer from the heat wave than cold winters. So I think that's a very important message, of course, and I've been saying that in a couple of videos recently, that it is important that you turn the heating on. But of course, people don't want to get debts, and they don't want to get the threat of being cut off. Now, it says here, even before the price rises, we were told that tens of thousands were at risk of dying from cold weather in the UK. Now, millions are in fuel poverty. So this might be a useful tool. Just 2 more paragraphs and we'll get onto it. Legally, they cannot cut you off for not paying the energy bill when you're on the Priority Services Register, or they cannot legally place a customer onto a prepayment meter because they are endangering life, which is as good as a death sentence, which I guess that is. Please let people know about it after I've looked into it. So we'll have a quick look at that, and then I'll leave the link in the description, and you can see if it's something that you or perhaps a member of your family or extended family can find useful. Because if it's help and the government are basically offering it, I think everybody should take advantage of every damn thing that they offer, because they're taking our taxes left, right, and centre. We may as well get our money's worth for it. He adds, finally, something to note: it's very likely to be a wise move to still make a minimum monthly payment where possible, and try not to miss these minimum monthly payments, which I think is a very good thing. It's always better, I've found, to, even if you can't afford something, at least offer and make a payment, even if it's just a very small, because it shows willing, and I think that's a very important thing. Now, I'm not legally trained. I have no legal advice. This isn't legal advice. I'm just sharing what somebody said to me. I have to put these caveats in to obviously stop anybody saying, well, you've told us stuff. This is just something that's come to me for you to have a look at. He also says it's wise to phone up and mail a letter to the energy supplier explaining your situation, giving income and expenditure where needed, and explaining personal situation, health, and why you need heating. He says, I mean, everybody needs electric and heating now, but for some reason we have to pretend that we don't know this, and we have to explain why we need heating, which, the fact that you would even have to explain that you would need heating in a cold snap like we've got, and the weather saying that it's going to get colder, although somebody did tell me it's going to rain. I don't know whether that's just down here towards Christmas. Anyway, apparently they have legal and lawful responsibilities once you're on this register. So let's have a look at let's just get there to the register, and let me share the desktop here. So this is from Ofgem, which is part of the government, and I'll leave the link in description. It says here, as you can see, get help from your supplier, Priority Services Register. The Priority Services Register is a free support service that makes sure extra help is available to people in vulnerable situations. So that might be you. Or somebody you know. So to check if you're eligible, you have to have the following: have reached your state pension age, are disabled or have a long-term medical condition, are recovering from an injury. Now, no, quite what that means. I don't think that means a paper cut. Having a hearing or sight condition, have a mental health condition, are pregnant or have young children, have extra communication needs, such as if you don't speak or read English well, need to use medical equipment that requires a power supply, so that could be any thing that needs to be plugged in, I suppose, have poor or no sense of smell, and would struggle to answer the door or get help in an emergency. So you can imagine that must be a huge number of people. And then it goes on to tell you how to register, and it sounds like it should be an easy process. Energy suppliers and network operators will both keep a priority services register. If you think that you should be added to either, you need to contact your energy supplier or network operator, give them the contact details and as much information about your needs. Your supplier can pass your details to your network operator and add you to their register too. It's a good idea to ask them to do this if you rely on your energy for medical reasons. If you have a different supplier from your gas and electricity, you need to contact them both. So there we go. And number 3 on this is, whenever possible, advance notice of scheduled power cuts. You will get, if you rely on the energy supply for medical reasons, your network operator will tell you about planned power cuts. You should have priority support in an emergency, priority support when calling your network operator. There'll be an identification password scheme, a nominee scheme, so you can nominate someone to receive communications and bills from your supplier. Help with prepayment meter access, regular meter reading services, accessible information, and help reconnecting your gas if you need it. So it might help. I don't know. I mean, as I say, I actually have an eye condition, but I just have lost an eye, so I'm not really. It's not what you call cured, because I wear a prosthesis, but I probably wouldn't be right for that. But there might be people out there. You may know somebody, and if it means the difference between not cutting you off, if they legally can't cut you off, or getting a priority being put on in a power cut, that you are one of the first people to have your power supply returned, or I suppose if it's a long-term power supply that you need to have batteries or generators or whatever it might be. Now, I'm not saying this is the case, but I would think that it would be reasonable to expect that kind of thing if you are likely to be a vulnerable person and be affected from the lack of supply, particularly in a cold snap like we are having in a winterish time. It may be worth. I'll leave the description in the. I won't leave the description anywhere. It's there. I'll leave the link in the description, and good luck with all of that. I'm just passing it on, and I hope that this has been. It's like being a public information service, but there is a number of people who watch the channel now, and if I can help in any way like this, I'm only too happy to do so. Thank you for watching.